The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. It was a cold, clean silence, the kind made by advanced technology and ancient, unwavering protocol. On the massive central viewer, a planet hung in the blackness. It was beautiful, dotted with sparkling cities that glowed with a soft, internal light. This was Ethel, home of the Solary, and it was under a death sentence. Ambassador Valen of the Tarn stood tall, his scaled skin reflecting the harsh light. His voice was not angry, but final. The mind fade is absolute. The Solary telepathic nature, once their greatest gift, is now a galaxy-wide threat. Their very thoughts are lethal to us. Quarantine is not a punishment. It is a necessity of cosmic hygiene. Next to him, the willowy form of Ambassador Elia of the Illusions gave a slow, sad blink, her large eyes gleaming. Our economic models show zero benefit in intervention. The resource cost to find a cure is astronomical, the risk of spread incalculable. It is with profound regret that we must prioritize the health of the greater galactic community. Finally, the oldest among them, Ambassador Keth of the Vel, spoke. His voice was like stone grinding. We have watched civilizations rise and fall for millennia. The Solary are a tragic anomaly. Their biology has turned against them, and in doing so, has turned against all life. The Vel concur. The Solary system is to be placed under permanent, non-negotiable quarantine. All contact is forbidden. A single command was sent. From the dark side of the moon, a network of sleek, silent drones emerged. They took up positions around Ethel, forming a perfect, impassable ring. They were not warships. They were watchers. They would ensure no one entered, and more importantly, that nothing left. The viewer switched off. The Solary were erased from the galaxy's concern. Weeks later, and light years away, Captain Lee De Hyon of the Earthship Un's Endurance straightened the collar of his formal uniform. He stood in a smaller, less ornate chamber, the petition room for aspirant species. Before him, the same three ambassadors looked down from a high balcony. The air here was different. It smelled of recycled human air, not the strange, sterile scent of the main council halls. Ambassadors, De Hyon began, his voice calm and clear. Humanity thanks you for this audience. We have met all preliminary requirements for integration. We have shared our sciences, our histories, our philosophies. We seek a place in this community, to learn, to contribute, to join the great story of the galaxy. He presented their case. Earth's unified government, their fledgling faster-than-light rise, their peaceful colonies on Mars and in the Centauri system. He spoke of a desire for partnership. Ambassador Valen was the first to respond. He did not even consult a datapad. Captain Lee, your enthusiasm is noted. However, your application reveals the core issue. You are a species governed by emotion. Your decision-making is erratic, influenced by illogical concepts like compassion and sacrifice. You lack the necessary detachment for cosmic citizenship. The Tarn cannot endorse a species that might act on a feeling rather than a calculated logic. Ambassador Elia gave a thin smile. Your economic structures are fascinatingly primitive. You prioritize the well-being of all individuals, even the non-productive. This is not efficient. Until you reform your societal models to a more rational, productivity-based system, you pose a risk to stable galactic trade networks. The old Vel Keth simply stared. You are children. You have barely left your cradle. You think discovering faster-than-light travel makes you ready? You have not endured the trials of time. You have not faced true extinction. You are untested, and therefore unreliable. The words were a hammer, each one landing with a cold, heavy finality. De Hyon felt a hot flush rise on his neck, but his face remained impassive. With respect, ambassadors, our emotions, are what drive us to explore. Our compassion is what unites us. Are these not strengths? Valen's reptilian eyes narrowed. They are vulnerabilities. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Sentiment gets you killed. It endangers others. Your petition for full integration is denied. You may maintain your current observer status. That is all. The session was terminated. The holographic forms of the ambassadors flickered and disappeared, leaving Hyan alone in the quiet room. The rejection was total, and it was humiliating. They weren't just saying, "Not yet." They were saying, "Not ever." Humanity, with all its hope and effort, was deemed too flawed, too messy, too human to belong. Back on the lunar orbiting station that served as humanity's capital, the mood was grim. The United Terran Directorate was in emergency session. The main screen showed two images side by side. One was the cold, official seal of the Galactic Council's rejection. The other was a silent, looping video feed from a long-range probe, showing the Solry homeworld encircled by those silent, watchful drones. Director General Park, a stern woman with sharp eyes, addressed the room. The Council's message is clear. We are to stay in our corner of the galaxy and not trouble them. Our applications for technology exchange have been blocked. Our trade delegations are being turned away. We are pariahs by design. A scientist from the Xenostudies department, Dr. Park Ji-woo, stood up. She was younger than most in the room, and her passion was a live wire in the atmosphere of defeat. With the Director General's permission, she said, her voice trembling slightly but clear. She pointed to the image of Ethel. They did the same to them. But worse. We were rejected for who we are. The Solry were condemned for what they are. A biological accident. They are being left to die alone because helping them is inconvenient. A murmur went through the room. An admiral scoffed. Dr. Park, our situation is precarious enough. Involving ourselves in a galactic-level quarantine is suicide. The Tarn would see it as an act of war. That's exactly the point. Ji-woo insisted, her hands gripping the lectern. The Tarn, the illusions, the Vel, they all operate on cold logic and self-interest. They see a problem and either exploit it or erase it. What if? What if our flaw is the one thing the galaxy is missing? What if being too emotional means we are the only ones who will look at a dying, innocent race and ask, how can we help? Not how much will it cost? Captain Hyan, now seated at the military advisory table, spoke for the first time since his return. The Endurance is ready for a long-duration mission. Her crew is the best we have. We are already outsiders. What more can they do to us? The debate raged for hours. The risks were astronomical, provoking the Council, wasting precious resources, potential exposure to the mind-fade plague. But as the images of the Solry's glittering, silent cities played, and the blunt cruelty of their abandonment sank in, the calculus began to shift that it was not a decision based on strategic gain. It was not logical. It was, as the Council would say, deeply and fundamentally human. Director General Park called for a final vote. The tally was displayed on the main screen. It was narrow, but it was green. Operation Kindred Heart is authorized, she announced, a new weight in her voice. Captain Lee Hyan, you will command. Dr. Park Ji-woo, you will be the Chief Science Officer. You are to proceed to the Solry system. Your mission is not to cure a plague. Your mission is to bear witness, to see if there is anything at all, that can be done. And if there is, you are to do it. As the meeting adjourned, Hyan and Ji-woo met in the hallway. The scale of the task was terrifying. They were going to break a galactic law, sail into a deadly quarantine zone, all to help a race they had never met. Ji-woo looked at the captain, her earlier fire tempered by reality. What if we get there, and there's truly nothing we can do? Daehyun looked back at the now dark screen where the planet Ethel had been. Then we will be there with them, he said quietly. And they won't be alone when the lights go out. Sometimes, Captain, that is the only thing you can do. And it is everything. The UNSS Endurance hung in the void, a sliver of gray metal against the endless dark. Before it, marked on the navigation screens by softly pulsing red icons, was the Tarn blockade. It was not a wall of warships, but a precise, automated web of sentry drones. They drifted in perfect, silent formation around the solar system, a necklace of cold steel. Captain Lee Daehyun studied the display, his face lit by its pale glow. Our specs on the Tarn Mark 7 Sentry are 5 years old, Chief Engineer Kim Tae-sun said from his station, his voice low. Their scanners are broad spectrum. They'll see our energy signature long before we see them. A direct approach is impossible. Daehyun nodded slowly. So we don't approach directly. We don't look like a ship. He turned to his pilot, Kang Jun, who was already running simulations. Jun, remember the meteor shower exercises? The ones near Jupiter? Kang Jun, a man of few words who spoke with his hands on the controls, gave a tight smile. The rolling stone maneuver. Use the natural cosmic debris as cover. But, Captain, there is no debris field here. It's been swept clean. Then we make our own, Daehyun said. He laid out the plan. It was simple, desperate, and utterly human. The Endurance would vent a controlled cloud of particulate matter from its waste processing unit water ice, metal dust, and carbon. It was the space equivalent of a smokescreen. Then, Tae-sun would jury-rig the auxiliary thrusters to fire in a random, sputtering pattern mimicking the chaotic tumble of a large, broken piece of wreckage. They would shut down the main reactor, running on minimal backup power, and go completely dark. No active scans, no communications, not even internal gravity. For 12 hours, they would drift, a cold, silent piece of junk, hoping the Tarn drones would filter them out as background noise. Every system will be screaming, Tae-sun warned, already calling up schematics. Then we will have to whisper, Daehyun replied. The ship fell into a profound silence. The constant, gentle hum of the engines and life support faded away, replaced by an eerie quiet. The lights dimmed to emergency red. The crew strapped into their chairs, floating slightly against the restraints. Kang Jun, with delicate nudges of the attitude thrusters, set them into a slow, awkward spin. On the external viewer, the cloud of particles shimmered around them, blurring their sharp, human-made edges. They passed through the blockade line. Sensor readings from the drones flickered on a passive screen, showing sweeping arcs of energy. Once, a focus scan lingered on their position for 3 long, heart-stopping minutes. No one breathed. Then it passed, classifying them as cosmic debris, non-threat. The Endurance, a proud ship of Earth, had become a piece of forgotten trash. And it had worked. Once they were well inside the quarantine zone, power was cautiously restored. The main viewer cleared, and the planet Ethel filled the screen. It took their breath away. It was a world of soft blues and gentle grays, with continents covered in intricate, glittering patterns that were its cities. There were no signs of industry, no orbital stations, no ships. Only a deep, sorrowful stillness. The landing team took the shuttle Courage. It was just Daehyun, Dr. Park Ji-woo, Medic Choi Soo-min, and 2 security officers. They sat down in a wide meadow-like area on the outskirts of one of the crystalline cities. The air was sweet and cool, and the ground was covered in a soft, moss-like vegetation that glowed faintly. The city itself was made of towers that looked like grown crystal, not built, catching the light of the distant sun and scattering it into rainbows. But there was no movement, no welcome. Only the sigh of the wind. Then they appeared. From arches and doorways, the soul re-emerged. They were slender, slightly shorter than humans, with long, delicate limbs and large, luminous eyes that held galaxies of sadness. Their skin had a pearlescent sheen. They did not speak. They simply watched, clusters of them gathering at a safe distance. Their presence a soft weight in the air. Ji Woo, wearing her full environmental suit with a newly added neural dampening layer, took a cautious step forward. She held her hands out empty. A device on her belt projected simple, peaceful symbols: a star, a hand, a leaf. The Soulry watched the symbols. Then, one of them, slightly taller, with a crown of faintly bioluminescent filaments, stepped forward. Guide Wu could feel it before she understood it, a pressure, not in her ears, but behind her eyes. A feeling of immense, weary grief, like the echo of a scream that had gone on for years. She focused, pushing back against the psychic fog with her dampeners. She pointed to herself. Ji Woo. Then she gestured to the others. Human. Finally, she pointed gently at the Soulry Elder. Images flowed into her mind, not as words, but as concepts. A brilliant network of light connecting all things. Then a sudden, painful shockwave of energy from the sun. The network fracturing, burning. The light becoming a weapon. Death. Isolation. A profound, echoing sorry. The lead Soulry placed a long-fingered hand on its own chest. The concept it projected was clear, lumen, but the name came with a flood of associated meaning. Last light, speaker for the lost, the one who remembers when the song was whole. And then a stronger, desperate thought image, directed not just at Ji Woo, but seeming to emanate from all the gathered Soulry. It was a wall of silent drones. A locked door, a final solemn judgment, and over it all, a single pulsing warning. You should not have come. We are death. Back in the makeshift lab set up in the Courage, the data was clear and devastating. Ji Woo scrolled through the scans, her face pale. Su Min monitored her vital signs, watching for any spike in neural activity. It's not a plague, Ji Woo said, her voice hollow. Not a virus or a bacteria. They were right about that, but wrong about everything else. She pulled up a schematic of the local star. A solar event, a kind of psychic resonance flare, hit their planet years ago. The Soulry are natural telepaths. Their minds are all connected, a gentle, quiet network. The flare. It was like a feedback shriek blasted directly into their collective consciousness. She switched the display to show a simulation. A gentle web of light was struck by a violent, discordant pulse of red energy. The web didn't break. Instead, it started vibrating, carrying that painful, damaging frequency forever. They can't stop it. Their every thought is now saturated with this psychic trauma. It's a mind fade, because it's literally their minds fading under a pain they can't escape. And when they broadcast that pain, that distorted signal, it overwhelms and destroys any other telepathic or even deeply empathetic neurology. Like ours, they Hyons stared at the simulation, the tragedy of it sinking in. So they are not carriers of a disease. They are casualties, broadcasting a distress signal that kills anyone who hears it. Exactly, Ji Woo whispered, looking out the viewport at the luminous, sorrowful city. The galaxy diagnosed a contagious illness and quarantined the patient. But the patient is lying in a bed, screaming from a wound no one else can see, and the scream itself is lethal. They didn't need a cure. They needed someone to turn down the volume, to help them stop screaming. Tae Sun, who had been analyzing the Soulry crystalline structures, looked up. Their buildings. The crystal. It's not just pretty. It's slightly psychic conductive. It channels thought. Maybe we could use it. Not to cure them, but to shield them. Or shield us from them. The mission had changed. They were not searching for a medical miracle. They were now engineers of the soul, trying to solve a problem of resonant agony. They had crossed the galaxy to answer a call for help, only to discover the call itself was a weapon. The silence in the shuttle was heavy. Outside, the Soulry watched, their large eyes filled with a hope so fragile it was almost unbearable. The camp was called Haven. It was a cluster of prefabricated habitat domes and the parked Courage shuttle, sitting in the glowing meadow at the edge of the Soulry city. A thin, transparent fence marked its perimeter, not to keep anyone out, but to mark the safe zone. The truth was a heavy burden. The Soulry were trapped in a nightmare of their own minds, and their very nature was a death sentence to others. Dr. Park Ji-woo sat in the small lab dome, her head throbbing. She had just finished another series of neural tests. The results flickered on her screen. The human brain, it turned out, was a strange thing in the galaxy. While not telepathic, it was deeply, messily empathetic. And it had a unique ability to absorb psychic feedback and, to a limited degree, process it without immediate fatal failure. "It's like we're psychic sponges," she explained to Captain Lee Dae-hyon and the others. Her voice was tired. "We soak up the harmful resonance. We don't broadcast it back out cleanly. We scramble it. But it fills us up. It causes migraines, intense emotional overload, vivid nightmares. It's like listening to a constant, deafening alarm bell. You can survive it, but it will break you, slowly." She pulled up a diagram. It showed a human brainwave pattern next to the violent, jagged signal of the Soulry psychic scream. A small, crude device was superimposed on the human pattern, a neural dampener based on Soulry crystal tech. The dampener quiets the effect. It lets one person act as a buffer for a small area. A beacon. The beacon absorbs the dispersed psychic pain, grounds it, and creates a circle of calm. A few meters of quiet, where a Soulry won't hurt anyone else. Choi Soo-min, the medic, looked at the stress readings from Ji-woo's last test. "The neurological strain is immense, Ji-woo, even with the dampener. Doing this for extended periods could cause permanent damage. It's not a solution. It's a sacrifice." Dae-hyon looked from the data to the view outside. In the distance, a group of Soulry stood, waiting. They understood the concept now. They knew the humans had found a fragile key. Their posture was one of desperate, silent hope. "How many can one person shield?" he asked quietly. "With current dampener strength?" "Maybe 5 or 6 Soulry, if they stay close," Ji-woo said. "Enough to have a conversation, to work together in a small space." The captain stood up. He walked to the comms panel and opened a channel to the whole camp and to the Endurance in orbit. His voice was steady. "This is the captain. We have a situation report." He explained it all, clearly and without sugarcoating. The psychic scream, the human buffer, the pain it would cause, the risk. "We came here to help. This is how we can help. We cannot cure them, but we can stand with them. We can share the burden of their pain. I am asking for volunteers to act as beacons. There is no order. This is a choice." He finished speaking. The comm channel was silent for a long moment. Then a light on the panel blinked. It was Kim Tae-sun, calling from the engine room of the Endurance in orbit. "Engineer Kim Tae-sun volunteering. Somebody has to keep the lights on down there, and my head is pretty hard." Another light. Kang Jun, the pilot. Pilot Kang Jun volunteering. Sitting in a quiet chair is boring. One by one, every single light on the panel lit up. From the cooks to the engineers, from the security officers to the junior scientists. Not a single person refused. Soo-min simply nodded at Ji-woo, a small, determined smile on her face. Ji Woo felt a lump in her throat that had nothing to do with psychic feedback. The first shift began. Dae Hyan insisted on going first. He fitted the neural dampener, a crystal and metal band, around his temples. He walked out beyond the fence, towards the waiting Solry elder, Lumen. As he crossed the threshold, he felt it. It was like walking into a wall of sound made of pure sorrow. A crushing sense of loss and isolation pressed on his mind. The dampener hummed, turning the deafening screen into a terrible, discordant roar he could bear. He focused on his breathing, on the solid feeling of the ground under his boots. He stood before Lumen. The area of calm extended around him, a bubble in the psychic storm. Lumen slowly reached out a hand. Dae Hyan took it. No words passed between them, but a feeling did. It was gratitude, so profound and warm, it made Dae Hyan's eyes sting. It was a feeling of a door, locked for years, being cracked open to let in a single shaft of light. Work began. With Dae Hyan as the living beacon, a small team of Solry, led by Lumen, could approach. They brought with them smooth, organic-looking tools. They showed the humans how the glowing moss could be encouraged to grow, providing a soft light source. They pointed to specific crystal formations that, when gently tapped, resonated at a frequency that seemed to soothe their own fractured network. The humans, in turn, used their tools to help clear debris from a beautiful crystal fountain that had run dry. They worked in silence, mostly. But the silence was no longer empty. It was full of shared purpose. Later, it was Su Min's shift. She sat with a group of smaller Solry, their large eyes watching her. She showed them simple pictures on a pad, a human heart, a smiling face, a bandage. She projected the concept of healing. One of the little Solry, its filaments pulsing weakly, reached out and touched the image of the bandage. It then touched its own chest, and a clear, simple image of a fading light floated into Su Min's mind. Su Min, her head pounding but her heart full, projected back an image of the light growing steady again, shielded by a pair of human hands. The Solry child made a soft, chiming sound. It was the first sound of anything like joy any human had heard on that planet. Weeks passed in this fragile, painful rhythm. Haven grew. Small shelters were built where Solry could sit within the human bubbles of calm. A basic routine formed. But on the Endurance, orbiting silently, engineer Kim Tae-sun watched his long-range scans with growing unease. A routine Tarn patrol was on the edge of the system. Their course was predictable. But this time, they slowed. They had detected something. Not the Endurance, which was hidden behind the moon, but the residual energy signatures from the shuttle, the camp, the active dampeners. It was a whisper of activity where there should be absolute silence. Captain, Tae-sun's voice crackled over the comm to the surface. We have company. Tarn patrol vessel. They are scanning the planet's surface. They have detected anomalous energy readings from our position. They are moving to investigate. The fragile peace shattered. Dae Hyan, off shift and trying to rest, was on his feet instantly. On the main viewer in the command dome, they saw it, the sleek, predatory shape of the Tarn vessel breaking orbit and descending into the atmosphere. It was 100 times more powerful than the Courage. The ship hovered over Haven, a dark shadow blocking the sun. A harsh translated voice burst from every comm system, loud and full of cold authority. Unidentified organisms in violation of Galactic Council Quarantine Edict 7. You are ordered to identify yourselves immediately. You have trespassed into a condemned system. Prepare for boarding and decontamination, or be vaporized where you stand. The Solry around Haven flinched, a wave of fresh fear rippling through their already tortured network. The psychic scream, for a moment, spiked sharper, making every human wince in pain. They had been found. The shadow of the Tarn patrol ship was a physical weight over Haven. The air crackled with tension. The Solri huddled closer together, their collective fear a new, sharp note in the constant background hum of sorrow. Inside the command dome, Captain Lee Dae-Hyan looked at the faces of his team. Park Ji-woo's jaw was set, her hands clenched. Choi Soo-min was already checking her medical kit, her movements automatic. On the screen, the Tarn ship hovered, a silent threat. Dae-Hyan keyed the open channel. His voice was calm, clearer than he felt. "This is Captain Lee Dae-Hyan of the Earth vessel Endurance, representing the United Terran Directorate. We are providing humanitarian aid to the Solri people. We are in full control of the biological hazard. There is no risk of contagion." A harsh, scoffing sound came through the speaker. "Humanitarian aid?" replied the Tarn commander. "You are children playing with a supernova. The mind fade is absolute. Your control is a fantasy. You have violated a core galactic law. You will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Your vessels will be impounded. Your crew will be placed in permanent isolation. This is your only warning." Dae-Hyan felt a cold anger settle in his stomach. Isolation. A prison for his crew, for trying to help. He looked at Ji-woo, who gave a small, desperate shake of her head. Surrender meant abandoning the Solri to their fate, and condemning his own people to a living death. He muted the external cum and turned to his team. "Options?" Kim Tae-sun's voice came from the Endurance in orbit, strained. "Captain, their weapons could slag Haven from orbit. The Courage is a shuttle, not a warship. We cannot fight them." "We don't fight them," Dae-Hyan said, his mind racing. "We outlast them. We make our case." He reopened the channel to the Tarn. "Commander, we invoke Article 14 of the Galactic Accords. The law of compassionate intervention. A sovereign entity may intervene to prevent the genocide of a non-aggressive species when the ruling council is in dereliction of its duty." There was a long silence. When the Tarn commander spoke again, the disdain was palpable. "You are not a sovereign entity. You are a petitionary species. Your claim is invalid. And the Solri are not victims of genocide. They are victims of their own defective biology. Your sentimentality is a disease. Final warning, stand down." The channel went dead. On the viewer, energy weapons on the Tarn ship began to glow with a malevolent green light. They were targeting the Courage. "June, get the shuttle off the ground now." Evasive pattern. Dae-Hyan barked. Outside, the shuttle's engines roared to life. Kang Jun lifted it straight up, just as a searing green beam sliced through the air where it had been, scorching the crystal ground. The Courage twisted and weaved, a moth against a laser pointer. It wasn't a fight. It was a desperate dance for survival. On the Endurance, Tae-sun watched, helpless. Then his console lit up with a new automated message from the wider galactic network. "Captain, they've done it. The Council has ratified the Tarn's action. Sanctions are being imposed on Earth and all human colonies. Trade is cut. Communication lines are being severed. We are being declared galactic outlaws." The words hung in the air. Outlaws. The cost of their compassion was now being paid by every human being, everywhere. The weight of it was crushing. The Tarn ship did not leave. It established a high orbit, a constant, watchful threat. It did not fire again, but the message was clear. They were trapped. The sanctions meant no supplies were coming. The Endurance had limited resources. Haven had even less. Days turned into a tense, grinding week. Rations were cut. Energy usage was minimized. The work with the Solri continued, but now under a dark cloud. Every shift as a beacon felt heavier. The psychic pain mixed with the very human fear of a slow, lonely end. Dr. Park Ji-woo worked until she collapsed. She was pushing herself too hard, taking double shifts as a beacon, while also trying to analyze the solar crystals. Su-min found her slumped over a workbench, her neural dampener flashing a warning. The medic carried her to the infirmary, hooking her up to monitors. "You are burning out your own mind," Su-min said gently, checking the readings. "You can't help them if you are broken." Ji-woo's eyes fluttered open, filled with tears of frustration and exhaustion. "There has to be an answer, Su-min. Not just a buffer. A real solution. The crystals, the way they channel thought, and our dampeners? They're just small versions." Her voice trailed off as she fell into a deep, troubled sleep. While she slept, Lumen came. The Solri elder stood at the clear wall of the infirmary, not entering, its large eyes fixed on Ji-woo. It placed a long-fingered hand against the clear material. Su-min felt it then, a gentle, purposeful push against her own mind, softer than the usual scream. It was an image, clear and deliberate. A single Solri crystal, then a network of them linking together, covering a wide area. Then an image of the human neural dampener, but scaled up enormous, its energy pulsing through the crystal network. Finally, an image of their sun, with a painful flare hitting the planet-wide net, and the net absorbing the energy, diffusing it harmlessly into rainbow light. Su-min's breath caught. She immediately called for Kim Tae-sun. When Ji-woo awoke, Tae-sun was there, with Su-min's notes and Lumen's psychic schematic. The engineer's eyes were wide with a frantic kind of hope. "Ji-woo, look. Lumen understands their own technology. They've shown us. We've been thinking small personal dampeners. But what if we build a planetary one?" Ji-woo sat up, her fatigue forgotten, the scientist in her seizing the idea. "A psychic diffuser. Use the Solri crystalline structures as a natural antenna network. We tune it. We use the core reactor from the Endurance as the power source. It would have to be a perfect harmonic frequency to cancel out the solar resonance, not block the Solri's natural thoughts." "It's a moonshot," Tae-sun said, running calculations on a pad. "We'd have to land the Endurance. We'd have to build relay towers at key harmonic points across the continent. We'd have to link it all to the main crystal spire in their city. One mistake in the frequency, and we could amplify the scream, wipe out every mind on the planet." Ji-woo looked from the schematic to the view of the silent, watching Tarn ship on the monitor. "If we do nothing, we all die slowly anyway. The Solri from their pain, use from starvation, or a Tarn energy bolt. And Earth dies a little too, cut off from the galaxy." She met Tae-sun's eyes. "It's not a moonshot. It's the only shot." Dae-hyun approved the plan. It was insane. It required everything they had. They would have to land the Endurance, their only way home, and strip it for parts. They would have to work in the open, under the gaze of the Tarn, who would see the massive energy signature the moment they powered the reactor. It was an all-or-nothing gamble, with 2 entire species as the stakes. Preparations began in secret. In the Endurance, Tae-sun and his team started the delicate work of preparing to safely land the great ship and rig its fusion core for a controlled, directed energy beam. On the surface, under the guise of normal beacon-assisted work, humans and Solri began to mark locations and gather the specific resonant crystals needed for the relay towers. They were building a shield for a mind, and they had only one chance to raise it. The final day dawned with a tense, metallic taste in the air. The Tarn commander's ultimatum crackled across all frequencies, a cold, repeating loop. "Human vessels, you have 12 standard hours to abandon the surface and surrender for detention. Your continued illegal presence and energy signatures constitute an act of rebellion. Failure to comply will result in your immediate destruction. Captain Lee Dae-Hyen heard it and turned the volume down. His eyes were on the view from Haven. The UNSS Endurance filled the sky, a majestic, impossible sight as it descended through the atmosphere. It was not designed for planetary landings. Kim Tae-san guided it down with a combination of brilliant engineering and pure nerve, its massive engines thundering, kicking up great clouds of glowing moss and crystal dust. It settled a kilometer from Haven, a mountain of borrowed steel, its core reactor pulsing with the promise of salvation or a spectacular end. Begin Phase 1, Dae-Hyen ordered. All pretense was over. Humans and Solry moved as one. Teams, protected by rotating beacons, who grimaced under the psychic strain, raced to the pre-marked sites. They were not building with metal and wire, but with living crystal and tuned resonators. At each site, Solary craftsmen, their delicate hands moving with sudden, sure purpose, guided the placement of the crystalline nodes. Human engineers, following Tae-san's precise schematics, connected them to power conduits snaking back to the Endurance. High above, the Tarn patrol ship watched. They saw the massive energy buildup in the landed human ship. They saw the strange, sprawling network being built. They could not understand its purpose. To them, it looked like madness or weaponization. The commander's voice returned, sharper. You are activating a forbidden's energy grid on a quarantined world. Cease at once or be fired upon. Dae-Hyen ignored it. Tae-san, status? From the engine room of the Endurance, now a buzzing hive of activity, Tae-san's voice was tight. Reactor is at 60% and holding for the beam. The harmonic calibrations are finicky. The crystals are alive, Captain. They keep shifting the resonance. We need lumen. The Solary Elder was already there, standing beside Tae-san in the roaring heart of the human ship. Lumen placed its hands on the main console, not touching the controls, but feeling the energy. A stream of pure mathematical harmony, of corrected frequencies, flowed from its mind into the engineer's readings. The chaotic numbers on the screen smoothed into a perfect, stable waveform. The planetary diffuser was tuning itself. Suddenly, the ground shook. A blinding green beam lanced down from the Tarn ship, striking 50 meters from a relay tower being built by Kang Jun's team. The explosion of molten crystal and earth threw them to the ground. The warning was clear. The next shot would not miss. They're targeting the network. June shouted over the comms, scrambling up. Endurance, we need that shield now. Dae-Hyen yelled. We need 3 more minutes for full power. Tae-san responded, panic edging his voice. They didn't have 3 minutes. On the viewer, they saw the Tarn ship's weapons glow again, this time aiming directly at the central spire in the Solary City, the nexus for the entire diffuser network. Dae-Hyen made a decision. June, get the Courage airborne. Draw their fire. Buy us time. Understood, came the pilot's calm reply. The battered shuttle shot skyward, not towards the Tarn ship, but across its line of sight, its thrusters flaring brightly. The Tarn ship, predictably, swiveled its guns and fired. Kang Jun flew like a man possessed, weaving through the beams, a tiny, brave insect dodging pillars of green fire. On the ground, the seconds ticked by. 90%. Tae-san called out. A Tarn energy bolt grazed the Courage's wing, sending it into a spiraling dive. June fought the controls, pulling up just before it crashed into a crystal ridge. The shuttle was limping, smoke trailing from its side. Power at 100%. Diffuser network is live and tuned. Tae-san screamed. Dae-Hyen didn't hesitate. Activate. Deep within the Endurance, the reactor released a controlled, titanic surge of energy. It shot through the primary conduit into the central crystal spire. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happened. Then, A visible wave of soft silver light pulsed from the spire. It raced along the paths of the relay towers, connecting them in a web of gentle radiance. The light swept over the planet, a silent, expanding ring of peace. Dr. Park Ji-woo, standing outside Haven, felt it first. She had taken her neural dampener off to feel the true effect. The constant, crushing weight of psychic sorrow, the scream that had filled her mind for weeks, simply dissolved. It didn't fade. It was canceled, like a discordant note met by its perfect opposite. What remained was a faint, beautiful hum. It was the sound of the soul mind, clear for the first time in generations. It was curiosity, relief, a fragile, dawning joy. Lumen, still on the Endurance, looked up. Its large eyes overflowed with tears of pure, liquid light. It broadcast a single, clear thought image to every human and soulry on the planet. A sunrise after an endless night. The Tarn commander, seeing the strange energy wave but detecting no weapons fire, grew impatient. Enough tricks. Destroy the central spire. But before the order could be carried out, Ji-woo did something. She opened a direct channel to the Tarn ship, her video feed showing her face, clear-eyed and without any protective gear. Tarn Commander, scan me. Scan my brainwave activity. Scan the planet. The mind fade field is neutralized. The biological hazard is over. You are not looking at a weapon. You are looking at a cure. The Tarn ship, driven by cold logic, complied. Its sophisticated sensors swept over Ji-woo, then over the planet. The data that streamed back was irrefutable. The lethal psychic resonance was gone. Only baseline, non-lethal telepathic emanations remained. The plague was over. There was a long, dead silence from orbit. The diffuser's light settled into a gentle, permanent aurora that danced around the crystal spires. The soulry began to emerge from their city, not in sorrowful clusters, but in a quiet, spreading wave. They touched the grass, the crystals, each other, feeling their own world anew, without pain. They approached the humans, and for the first time, their telepathic touch was not a weapon, but a gift to soft, warm feeling of gratitude that washed over the weary human crews. On the Endurance, Tae-sun slumped in his chair, exhausted. On the ground, Kong-jun landed the damaged Courage, stepping out to a silent, grateful nod from Dae-hyun. Su-min moved among people, checking for injuries, her medical scanner now reading calm, stable minds everywhere. The Tarn ship did not fire. It did not land. After several minutes, it turned and, without another word, powered its engines and shot back towards the stars, carrying news that would shake the Galactic Council to its foundations. Days later, the sanctions on Earth began to crumble. The story, carried by lesser species and independent traders, spread like starlight. The humans had not obeyed the cold logic of quarantine. They had not calculated the cost. They had walked into the heart of the darkness, with nothing but a stubborn belief that no one should die alone. And they had turned the lights back on. Captain Lee Dae-hyun stood with Ji-woo on a ridge, looking at the new haven below. Humans and soulry worked together, rebuilding, the gentle hum of connection between them a quiet music. They won't give us a seat on their council. You know, Ji-woo said softly. Dae-hyun smiled. A real easy smile for the first time in a long while. He watched a human engineer laugh as a young soulry showed her how to make a crystal chime sing. No, he said. I don't suppose they will. But we don't need a seat at their old table, Ji-woo. He nodded to the thriving settlement, to the two species working as one. We're building a new one. And I think we've just found our first friends to sit at it with us. In the gentle light of the diffuser's aurora, the future, for the first time, looked wonderfully, compassionately human.